So, welcome to the second episode of Badges and Breakthrough. Myself, Kela, as always, Dylan Bates here, and we are joined with an amazing individual. Before we go ahead and bring him on, I want to give a real quick bio for him. So, we are joined with George, a lifelong Maryland resident who uniquely bridges 25 years of high risk law enforcement with specialized mental health expertise, a Maryland state trooper from 1985 to 2009. George spent 20 years working predominantly undercover across a broad spectrum of criminal activity, specializing in murder for hire investigations, where criminals would actually hire him believing that he was a hitman. He served 15 years as a team leader on the hostage negotiation team and worked everything from narcotics task forces and gang units to the DEA's violent traffickers initiative in Baltimore City. After retiring, George earned his master's in clinical mental health counseling from Divine Mercy University and now owns Driftwood Psychotherapy in Reisterstown. Did I get that right, George? He's a certified field traumatologist through the Green Cross, having deployed to Kenya and Oregon's wildfires, with 5 years as a substance abuse counselor in residential and outpatient settings, plus intensive addiction training through Catholic charities. Having lost friends and coworkers to suicide and line of duty death, George has a heart for first responders struggling with addiction, trauma, and stress. He calls his work his ministry, treating every person non-judgmentally, and a client-centered, integrative approach that moves people from feeling stuck back to productive lives. He prides himself on working with any first responder, no matter their backgrounds. So with all that being said, George, amazing background. Welcome to Badges and Breakthrough. Did I get everything right on that? And if there's anything I missed, please go ahead and fill those in.
I think you did gold.
Awesome. So, George, so if you don't mind giving us a little bit of the backstory behind this 22 years of undercover background with that hitman for hire, how did that come about?
Yeah, it's a very strange skill. You know, when you retire, you can't really find work in it unless you really kill people. And I didn't. I was a fake hitman. And I always tell people, yeah, I retired. I knew how to buy and sell drugs. I knew how to be hired as a hitman. I knew how to do illegal gambling and buy guns. None of that translates really into a job.
Everything the opposite of law enforcement.
Yeah. So when I was a young trooper, I had a friend. His name was John Voltaggio. He's retired now. And I worked at a barrack in uniform with the big hat, like all the state troopers have on the side of the highway. And I really wanted to do detective stuff. And John, I would talk to him all the time, and he was in what was called then a repeat offender unit. They would go after these repeat offenders and try to catch them again doing bad stuff. And so he had talked to me about maybe joining the fugitive team, and that's what I really wanted to do. Interestingly enough, I wasn't on a fugitive team until I retired, the last 3 years. I went my whole career not on a fugitive team. But so I went, he got me so I could go to be interviewed for the fugitive team and or the detectives. The captain, his name was Mazzone at the time, and he interviewed me and said, yeah, he took me. I was very young looking back then. As a matter of fact, my nickname was Beaver. If you remember the show Leave It to Beaver. Looked like Beaver Cleaver, so I went and was interviewed, and he said, I'd like you to work in the special assignment unit. I didn't even know what that was. And he said, they do any kind of non-narcotic related criminal investigation from an undercover perspective. Keeping in mind, just about everything is drug related, but predominantly, and that was murder for hire, it was gambling, it could be vice, it could be buying stolen property, anything that they needed surveillance, anything. So I wanted to be in. I didn't know what it was, so I immediately said yes, be happy to do it. And they took me, and we had an undercover office. There's a mental hospital here in Maryland called Spring Grove Mental Hospital. And on the grounds, they had the mental hospital where the people were kind of locked down. But on the grounds, they had these cottages, and each cottage would have 5 or 6 mentally ill people who are sufficiently mentally ill that they couldn't live in society. Not necessarily dangerous, but they had to live in these group houses. And one of those houses was us, right in the middle of all these houses. And the
Oh,
building's been condemned. It was all old, roaches and everything else. But that was our office. And that's where I met my first team of undercover guys. And some of them, Frank Walders, Donnie Newcomer, Charlie Poole, John Voltaggio, Tom Moore, they all took me under their wing. I was the young guy, and they were sort of like big brothers. They were rough. They would get in physical altercations right in the office, rolling around on the floor. They'd pull pranks on each other nonstop. And I loved it. I mean, they were crazy. I loved it. And it was through them that I started doing the murder for hires. My first one being in Cecil County, Maryland, was an individual wanted to kill his social worker. She wanted to kill the social worker she blamed for taking her child. And
wow.
and he was a black social worker, happened to be gay also. So she wanted a Ku Klux Klan member. So I had to pretend to be somebody in the KKK, and we had an informant, in the KKK. And he gave me an quick down and dirty education on what, I mean, there's actually more to it than you'd think. I have little codes and this and that.
Yeah.
And that was my first one. And so it was successful. And then after that, when you do anything in law enforcement or probably any career, you do something good one time. Then somebody says, hey, I got a guy did that one. Maybe he can do this one. Next thing you know, you're doing it, I won't say all the time, but I was doing it a lot, and then mixing in other undercover stuff at the same time. Like, for example, I'm in the jail undercover, stuff like that, so that's how I got started with the murder for hires. And I did that pretty much my whole career, even if I was in narcotics, if I was in the fugitive team, I was on the DEA team, whatever. If somebody had one they thought that I could do, I would leave the team and go do that and then come back to my regular assignment.
So
Awesome.
how did you get away with fake murders for hire? How do you say that you were successful enough for someone to be like, hey, I know this guy, he can do that too. He did the last one.
The success are the arrests. You arrest them for it, so you just get as much. And back then it was different. Then, I mean, people, I don't know if they still do, but undercover wise, you would try different things. We would try all kinds of things. I mean, it was really like another world
Yeah.
back in the 80s and 90s. We would try things. So, they might hire me. Okay, I want you to kill my wife or something. Okay, well, how do I find her? Okay, and they would give, anything they would give me. If they would draw a map for me on a napkin or something, like, hey, here's where the back door is, here's where the key is. Well, that's evidence. Of course, money, payment was evidence. And then what we did, we had our own method where we would, if somebody was, let's say, usually the relationship ones were the best because there's a lot of passion in there. There's a lot of, not so much business deals. We didn't get them from bikers or from the mafia because they have their own hitmen. They don't need to hire somebody they don't know. So the ones who had some passion in it. So what we would do is if they said, I want you to kill, for example, I had one where the guy wanted me to kill his wife, and he wanted me to run her over with a car while she's riding her. But she rode her bike every morning in this rural area in these country roads, and it'd be easy just to hit her real hard, run over her, hit and run. Well, I took his information, and without doing any police checks, no police checks, so I could say, honestly, if I was a hitman, with the information he gave me alone, I could find this woman. That meant going up there, parking. Sure enough, first thing in the morning, she gets out, gets on her bike, pedals on down the road, doing her exercises all around, and comes back home. And I could say, had I been a hitman, and I had a truck or something, with his information and his description of her, I could have found her and killed her. And then you have the money, and then you have maybe keys or maps, and of course you have body wires. Anything they say, like, do you want me to say anything when I kill him? One guy I want you to say, consider this a divorce, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Remember the one where he went to Mars?
Yep.
And he killed his wife, and he said, "Consider this a divorce." He wanted me to say that.
Wow.
He probably didn't know you knew the reference.
No. It comes a horror, sci-fi, Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I've seen them all 100 times. Exactly what he was talking about.
So I have to ask, because I've seen it so many times in law enforcement, is the politics behind getting cases prosecuted. And as a detective myself, I've dealt with it over and over and over. And I've worked in, ironically, and grew up in very liberal states. And no matter what, there's always, oh, it's not enough evidence, not enough evidence. Was it enough evidence just to say that you were able to do that and getting these materials that you were talking about? Or have you ever had problems with getting things prosecuted in that fashion?
Well, usually I prided myself in getting like an overabundance of evidence. So I had the body wire recording. I mean, that's pretty damning,
Yeah.
because they're right there saying, because I'd ask them things. I'd ask them what their alibi was. Well, I'm going to be in Ocean City that day. And you know what? Maybe we'd let them go to Ocean City that day. And then we'd go contact the wife, tell her who we were, put her in hiding. I'd call the guy, maybe, there was one in jail where I brought pictures. He wanted some kind of evidence, so he made it so he wanted me to be like a Bible study guy. I would come to the jail, meet him in the visiting room. We would have a Bible study, so we exchanged letters, and he wanted some kind of evidence. We went to her. We said, "Do you have anything?" She said, "Well, I'm a senior in high school." He had been accused of raping her, and so he was a military guy. Had been accused of raping her, and she was she was going to testify against him he was waiting trial for a rape.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and approached her and put her locked down so nobody could find her. And she said, just got her senior pictures. And if you remember, you get your senior pictures and you have a little baggie with all the pictures, to hand out to your friends. I took the whole baggie, and when I went to see him in prison, I brought my Bible. And inside the Bible, when I opened it up, I had all those pictures. So he's got to explain that. Body wires so that's the alibi, the motive, things that nobody would know. Like, I'll put a key under the mat. Well, we would go to the mat, lift it up, and sure enough, there'd be a key, and we'd try it in the door, and it would work. Anything like that. See, the body wire was the most damning, but you never know. You could lose it. There could be some way you lose the wire, and then I'd have also the way I found her. I don't think I ever had one that pled not guilty, and in mid-trial he pled guilty. No, I had one. I did have one, pled guilty, got found guilty, hung himself in his cell, and killed himself the same day.
Wow.
And right here in Baltimore County, in Towson.
Wow.
Oh, in Towson. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Close to home for some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But politics for me was not too much. Now the political situation was way different then.
Yeah.
Then only the criminals didn't like the police. Now it seems like lots of people are talking the defund the police and ridiculous things like that. Protest. They're making an arrest and they're filming them. There was no camera phones. So.
Yeah.
Filming them, yelling at them, everything else. We didn't really have any of that. We would be in wet places like in Western Maryland or the rural areas of Maryland. If I was doing a hostage negotiation, they would knock sometimes on the command bus and say, "Hey, trooper, we got a pot of coffee inside. You can come in, use the restroom if you want to. Just come through the back door." I mean, that's the way it was there. Only areas where, some of the high crime areas, it wasn't like that, but most of the state was like that. Maybe it still is. I don't know. But the stuff I see on the news now, it's nothing like that. It's actually a big problem with during the riots and everything. It was a big problem with a lot of clients that were coming in here. It was really, really bothering them that they didn't feel backed by their agency. Before it was always the threat you could get sued. Now it's a threat you go to jail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they feel like their departments won't back them. It's turning a little bit now, I've noticed, but I feel like they're going to get thrown under the bus. If somebody gets killed, it's my fault. The agency's going to prevent the public uprising, just throw you to the wolves.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about that here really, really soon.
Perception's reality. Doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Yeah.
That's perceived. So what do? Nothing. I handle my calls, and I try not to get involved in anything proactive.
Yeah. Yep. That
That's the
sounds
sad
about
part.
right.
That's
Yeah.
the sad
Yeah.
part. It's
Yeah, here.
that unfortunate perception as reality starts shifting the mindset away from what this is, and it's a profession. It's not just a simple 9 to 5,
Yeah,
And
it's full identity.
yeah,
It's a whole, guys don't say, what's the first thing guys say when they meet each other? Oh, what do you do? They don't say, I work for the police department. They say, I am a police officer. I am. That's pretty strong. That's an identity, you know.
that's a good point.
You know,
I haven't thought about it
yeah.
that way. People say, "Oh, where do you work at?" "Oh, I work at Starbucks."
Mhm.
Or I work at McDonald's. They don't say really what it is that they do, except for first
You
responders.
say,
I'm an EMT. I'm a firefighter. I'm a cop.
yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Oh. So, with that being said, that brings me to ask you this. So, 15 years, you're talking people back from the edge, right? As a hostage negotiator, working with people in their worst times. They're dealing with so much. They're going through all of that. When you were going through all of that yourself, having that secondary trauma, how did you separate that? Were you having to learn to, save yourself too at the end of the day, or did your family help, or how did you separate from that?
I chose a different path. I chose to remain a hot mess path. That's how I took care of myself. It was relationships. I was a train wreck. I would drink. I wouldn't go to, I was an alcoholic, but I was drinking. Um, yeah, my relationships were the worst for me. I was a train wreck. Well, my third, very happily married, my third marriage, been married for 15 years, my best friend, but it took me a while to get there. I had to be off the job before I started getting help. Like a lot of guys, I was no different. I'm in this profession now, but back then I had the same stigma. You don't ask for help. That means I can't handle it. I can't
Yeah.
handle it. I may lose my position, never realizing, till I retired, I never owned it anyways. They did, so, yeah, that was how I handled it. The hot mess method. That was the method I used. Method.
Well, Kela recently learned that in his leadership class, tell him about your renting the.
Oh yeah. We actually had an instructor for this class. Amazing guy, really really amazing guy. He's a retired major with Jupiter PD down in Florida. But he said something that came with the identity piece that we were talking about earlier, and it was a reminder that we just rent this uniform.
You really do, but you don't think that when you're wearing it.
Definitely
You don't think
not.
you don't think you're renting this office, this assignment, this car, this position.
The rank.
They could take it like this. Matter of fact, a big problem that I have with the mental health stuff that I do now, ongoing problem, is the guys that are retiring, especially they're retiring before they want to. PTSD, injury, get in trouble. So let's say they're injured. They get PTSD. They get a workman's comp type of retirement from their agency. So they have the same paycheck essentially, but feel like they have no purpose. And what happens a lot of times with these guys, especially the workman's comp type of retirements, they don't do anything for them. There's no party. There's no shadow box. There's no retirement badge. Just see you. It happens to higher ranking officers. They're at will. If you're like the guy in charge, see it. It's horrible. But these guys, they so long, and I was the same way. Don't get me wrong. So that was my identity. That's who I was. Okay, now I stripped that. I've stripped your identity. I've stripped who you are. Suicide doesn't sound like a bad option. Really. I mean, I'm dead anyways. So I hear it quite a bit, now it's a little different for the ones like I retired. I wanted to retire, so I never felt that. And I had the little party, and I have a retirement, shadow box I could put on the wall. I have a retirement badge in case I get stopped by the police,
Hey, if they didn't throw you one, we would have thrown you a party.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Right. So, yeah, that's a big issue that people don't talk about. It's enough of an issue that I think I'd like to put something together. So I don't know how to do it. Some kind of organization that for when police leave, they can help them find work or school or whatever they want to do. Maybe companies, have all these companies that'll say, yeah, we hire ex-felon, or we hire convicted. Okay, that's wonderful. They got to get a job too. But is there something? We hire veterans, the VA. We get a benefit if we hire a VA. Is there anything for police, like police officers? Hey, we would like to hire some retired cops, because they don't realize they have a lot of skills that are marketable. Just de-escalation, communication, writing. We write reports that some $400, $500 an hour attorney gets to try to pick apart on the stand, and we can do it. Problem solving. There's all kinds of things they can do, but they don't see it. Don't have this all on. Nobody now.
I think there's actually someone that we know that we could connect you with. I think you guys would be a really good partnership in that aspect. But something that, as a follower of him, something that I've learned from him just in my own research.
Colin.
Yeah, Colin. So what's his last name? Whittingham?
Colin Whittington.
Whittington, my bad. I'm very sorry, Colin.
Sorry, Colin.
Yes, Colin. He is coming on our podcast very soon as well. So, but I would love to connect you guys, because something that I've learned from him is that really we have the same skills as veterans, as law enforcement coming out of this. But the difference is the veterans are getting their resumes tailored and all of these things. They have these resources, but we don't have that. We don't speak like civilians anymore. We don't speak plainly. We don't know how to translate the skills of de-escalation to saying, hey, we can problem solve and we're great at customer service. Like, we don't relate the two, but they're identical. So it's tedious having to change your resume to every job. But really, I mean, what I've learned from him, it's saved me. So, I definitely would love to connect you two later.
Yeah, I would love that. It's true. I think, I get a lot of them, because a lot of them, I didn't like doing workman's comp in the beginning. It's a pain to work with. You got to fight for your money all the time. I have a dry erase board in the other room with how much money I'm owed from workman's comp, and I'll get it. I'm not worried, But so if I get an officer and he's coming to me with PTSD and he's been injured or something else, and he ends up making the decision that he thinks this is enough, he wants to pull the plug and retire. Well, I can't just say, well, I don't do workman's comp. You have to find somebody else, so I keep working with him. I don't go out soliciting workman's comp, but I have to, and they're not easy to work with,
Absolutely not. And what's really interesting is one of the things that we're so good at, because we're trying to do it, is articulation, right? But for some reason, we have such a hard time articulating in our own resumes, right? Articulating in an interview for another job, because going back to that whole identity thing, the identity crisis, I think we can all say, especially coming out of law enforcement, we believe that we're not able to do anything else than what we were trained to do. And one thing that I think Colin had actually mentioned in one of his posts is the program manager, right? Or a program analyst. And we do it so much. Or, the analyst side is just knowing how to just create a program. So if you helped out with an FCO package,
yeah,
there you go. That's one big part. You help change an SOP or a general order. Oh, there you go. You analyzed the policy, you revamped it, you made it more relevant to today. There you go.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I'm thinking in my head of how many times I've been the example oh, we have to change this SOP. I think every
think
cop has had that moment. I think it's hilarious.
think of just flexibility. You know, we can change our schedules. We've been changing it for 25 years. Well, we don't like to do it, but if you need somebody to come in on the weekend, well, I worked weekends forever.
Yeah.
Mission focused, where
Yeah.
people nowadays aren't. They're like, oh, well, it's Friday. Yeah, but we have to do this. Well, it's Friday. So then end the conversation. That I don't know the guy. I heard a story of a person. It's a big chain, and he was retired, driving his wife crazy. She's like, you got to get out of the house and do something. So I just heard this story. I don't know the guy. So he gets a job. I think it was like Best Buy or something like that. He said, okay, well, I like electronics. I'll just go get a job. Just be the basic guy. It sounds kind of enticing. I don't have to worry about anything. Hey, go over there, do this. Hey, do that. And so he did it. Well, he gets promoted to shift manager. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take it. Then he gets promoted to like team lead or something. And then before you know it, he's assistant manager. He's making a ton of money. Because, the assistant manager and manager make big money at those places. And so his friend asked him, he said, man, how'd you get up there so fast to that level? He said, I literally just did whatever they told me to do. If they said, we need somebody to sweep the floor. All right, boss. Hey, you mind coming in Saturday instead of Friday? Sure, no problem. Before you knew it, he was taking over the place. And he got so much he had to quit because he was like, I'm working too much.
Yeah, I literally think, and that's a perfect point, and that just goes down even more to, us transitioning from law enforcement or any first responder, really. I mean, we go from shift work. We're the main ones that, if you're running a minute late, that anxiety kicks in like nobody's business. But one of my friends told me, I told him, I was like, oh, I was running late. He was like, oh, how late were you? Like an hour, 2 hours? I was like, no, I was like running like a minute late to roll call. And he was like, a minute? My boss wouldn't even pay attention to that.
Right.
but that's that mindset that we get shifted in, and it creates in us. So what we think is just the bare minimum in the private sector is exceeding.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
we can go. I always say most police officers can do half speed.
Yep.
And they're full speed in the private sector. I mean, there's lots of transition. I retired and just went to school to do something that I felt called to do. And I guess there's always been a desire to do something like that. And, I love it. I use those kind of skills all the time, people skills, talking skills, listening skills, all the stuff that, we have to do.
I think that actually,
let me turn this light on. It's getting dark here. Let me see. Is that better?
Yeah, we're gonna do an edit real quick. Real quick, because this is really starting to drive me insane.
What?
Because I want to.
Oh, you want him
centered
toward the camera?
Yes, I want it centered to the camera. So
okay.
I need to move.
No. You're good. No, you're good.
Screen. So we have you reflected on like a TV, and it doesn't have
I got
see part of ourselves. So we're looking kind of like left, our camera's in the middle, so it makes us look kind of like we're like looking in outer space instead of actually at you, which is our looking. But yeah.
Well, you can't see here, but there's windows there and there's windows here, which is why I took this office instead of the other two. But now it's getting dark, so the windows were just open and it's getting dark fast. So that thing.
Yeah, no, but you're perfectly fine. So
that was a perfect segue into our next question.
I know. So I'm gonna start this next question.
And can you hear us? Can you hear him when he's sitting back? So we used to have an echo when we had these in. We would hear ourselves, but we're not hearing ourselves anymore, which is why we keep pointing at each other's mics. But if you can hear us clearly, that means that the TV can hear us. So we're good. Okay.
I can hear you clearly. Yep.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna roll on to the next question, but I'm gonna do it so they can edit it into that. So George, that's an awesome, perfect segue. So talking to the listening factor and everything like that you do, communicating, that clear communication. So you had 15 years on the negotiator team, right?
I asked him
Hostage negotiation team.
Hostage negotiation.
Next calling is the next. When you went away, I asked that one.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Cut that out. Um, so when it came to the whole communication thing, that's an amazing segue into it. So what made you realize that healing was going to be the next calling that you had, transitioning out of law enforcement and being able to apply those skills now into um, helping officers or any first responders?
I mean, what led to the calling? Where I could tell you that too. I mean, if you guys would like. Uh, so my son, when he was 12, he had leukemia. Uh, Almost lost him. A couple of times it got really bad. He was in the hospital for a year. Now, I live in Maryland. We have University of Maryland Hospital, and we have Johns Hopkins Hospital, both world renowned, especially Johns Hopkins. Both of them, he had a bone marrow transplant. He went from University of Maryland to there, all kinds of stuff. And I was divorced at the time. I was divorced from his mom. His name's Tommy. So uh, Tommy was in the hospital, skin and bones, bald head. I will say this for his mom, who's a friend of mine. We're not antagonistic. She was very impressive. She stayed in the room the entire time. I think for a year. She probably went home once. She lived in his hospital room. So people would come and go. I'd go there, as much as I could, but I worked also. Um, the So anyways, it was a pretty bad scene. When you're in a children's cancer ward, that's about as bad as it can get. You're in there day in and day out. You get to know families and their child dies, yours lives. You come off the elevator. I remember one time I came off the elevator and there was a whole family just on their knees praying right in the floor when you open up the elevator. Must have been 15 people. And that was not unusual. I met Dr. Ben Carson. He worked there. I met him. It was very impressive. Just the meeting. You can get to know all the nurses and doctors. And so I'm a lifelong Catholic, much more of a lifelong Catholic now. Then I was more like a lifelong Viking, but I was still a Catholic. I considered myself a Viking, believe it or not. So,
Well,
I
in
would
that
go.
line of work as a fake hitman, you might have been.
Perfect, but in Maryland, we have St. Jude's Shrine. Catholics have a saint for everything. And the saint for desperate causes is St. Jude. So they have this shrine. So every day I would just go there. I just walk up the street. It's right by Lexington Market, a few blocks up from the hospital. I would just sit there. I didn't go there for church or talk to anybody. I would just sit. Sometimes church was going on, but sometimes it wasn't. I would just sit there. There were times I was sitting there just kind of crying. Times I was sitting there doing nothing. Times I was sitting there just looking around. Times I would pray. Times I would just do nothing. One day, I don't remember what day other than it was warm. So I'm in there. I don't remember. I've thought about this a million times. I don't remember anything different that day with Tommy, with the St. Jude's Shrine. I would usually, there was a period of time he wouldn't eat any food at all. He'd just liquid. But when he was on the prednisone at first, it makes you crave meat. Lexington Market is like a mecca for meat. It's nothing but bulgogi and steak and just meat, just greasy, salty
The good
meat.
stuff.
That's what he wanted, right? That's what I still love. So, and so does he. So, I came out of the church because it's a church. St. Jude Shrine is actually a church. So I came out and there's marble steps. On the steps, clear as day internally, I heard the words, "I want you to work as hard setting them free as you did locking them up."
Wow.
Period.
Wow.
Never heard anything like it since. Never heard anything like it before. Never had experience like it. And it was internal. And I've talked to monks. I've talked to priests. I've talked to pastors. I've talked to people to say, was this real or was I just having some kind of psychotic break or something else? Because it wasn't like, you hear all this, you smell roses and this beautiful feeling of peace. It was literally terrifying. It was for a split second. If you can imagine something inside you that I call God, bare, there is nothing hidden. And I don't think you know how scary that is because how much stuff we hide.
Yes.
completely ripped open. Like the closest relationship I've ever had was nowhere close.
Wow.
Boom, stepped in, said it, didn't tell me anything. Just said what I want you to do. And boom, and gone. Never happened again. So that was that's how I approached it as a calling. That's a short version of what led me into mental health counseling. There was always I think there was a desire. I remember I have a note from my elementary school counselor where she gave me a happy gram because I had to go to the elementary school counselor. To be honest, I had a crush on her. Her name was Miss Shears. For my little third grade mind, she was the most beautiful woman I used to love going to talk to this woman. And I told her I wanted to be a counselor, and she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I want to help people." So she gave me a happy gram. And that's what led me. I didn't go right away, but it led me to slowly get into this field. My wife is my biggest supporter. And she said, I was working as a government contractor or something when I retired, making good money. I worked in Hawaii, for 6 weeks. I worked in New York. I was in Waikiki. I lived in Waikiki for a month. I lived in New York for a couple. I was making good money. And she asked me about it. And she said, if God wants it, it'll happen. And if he doesn't, it won't. And then you just do something else. So I just took that leap of faith and kept going. Started at a $14 an hour part-time treatment assistant job with 3 kids at home, and then worked my way up through the years. I got my associates. Then I got my as an associate, then I got my levels of drug counseling. Then I got my bachelor's degree. Then I went and got my master's degree. And then I went from being a therapist to having my own practice. And just as of August 1st, expanded and hired people. So
Outstanding. Congratulations, man. That's big stuff.
yeah, it feels really good. I've got a great beginnings of a team.
Great.
I want to touch on this later, so I'm going to mention it now because if I don't say it now, I'm going to completely forget it. But I do want to talk about at the very end of this how we met at the bridge, and my now husband, poor guy, had bought in the ring to propose to me, and really had no idea what a giant mess I was at the time. And I will never forget meeting you and Nikki, your wife, at the bridge, and sitting at lunch and just bawling my eyes out. I just could not stop. And I think it's really important to talk about the resources that first responders have or don't have, and where to turn to. And because we all feel so alone so many times. And have you ever seen I'm kind of bouncing, I apologize. Have you ever seen The Chosen? It's a show.
The series, the TV show? Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. I'd like to sit down and binge it. I haven't done that yet, but I've seen a lot of it. Yeah.
You are in for a treat.
You gotta be closer. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So what you were describing reminded me of when Jesus is on the steps of the church, and he's thrown the tables and done all this stuff, and the voice of God comes out, and everyone stops, and most people don't recognize it. Church-going people who believe, and they don't even recognize it. So I just, hearing you talk about that, I'm blown away, because for you to recognize, and even question in yourself as a counselor and all of this, knowing that this is what you want to go to, and knowing what you know now as a counselor, not having that training then, obviously, but having all these years of experience and all of that to recognize this is what I'm meant to do. This is God talking to me. This, to have that moment that is so rare. It must have been so profound. we're going to goosebumps just talking about it, but I just think it's so important. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that story with us. I think that a lot of people, hear things, and they, not schizophrenia, but they hear, they hear things, or there's signs, and God, works in such mysterious ways. But we just don't pay attention. And so the fact that you paid attention, the only reason that we are connected now and able to talk to you now is because meeting you have no idea how that changed my life. Like I was going in my third year of my PhD program, and I was like, you know what? I didn't know I can't be a licensed counselor without this. Like,
I remember that.
Yeah. I was like, I had no idea. I thought I could do that. Guess what? You can't. And then I looked into it, and, I literally was, thousands of dollars into that program.
I'm very well aware.
Oh, yeah, thousands of dollars into that program. And I was like, you know what? We're going to hit pause, and I'm going to go back for a second master's and do this. And Kela was like, poor guy had to know he was going to propose. And
I got locked in,
financially
guys.
tied.
I got locked in. Committed.
Yeah. I don't think you'll regret it. And keep in mind, there are these messages all the time.
Yeah.
And you said I paid attention. I spent so long not paying attention, and I was so hard-headed, probably hard-hearted, that it wasn't a good thing that God had to speak to me that way. To me, it was a bad thing. It's like, what the hell is it going to take with this guy? I have to really kick him in the ass to get him. I'm going to have to kick him in the ass to get him. I'm going to have to do something drastic with this.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because like I said, I wasn't feeling like flowers and roses. I was afraid,
The fatherly tone. It's a fatherly tone of attention. Yeah.
I had, and I think first of all, you're going to be dynamite. You're going to be, so I can't wait, to watch and hear what you're doing. Yeah, we'll be, wherever you end up, we'll be colleagues, and we'll be talking all the time. Both of you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, it's pretty crazy that, unfortunately, a lot of first responders, law enforcement, we have that big macho wacho. Nobody likes cops. Everybody loves firefighters. Shout out to the firefighters out there. You guys are probably cooking somewhere or taking a nap. But, the really scary thing is that not a lot of people, whether they have a belief system or not, to be able to have that connection and have it be so profound and right inside that you knew that was him speaking, when unfortunately a lot of us will start leaning more towards, unfortunately, alcohol, drugs, something to crutch the pain or to handicap the pain and have us carry on a little bit more, not knowing that it's destroying us every single day. And we all know that's not what we're supposed to be doing. But for you, there's the counselors, right? And this is not by any means bashing anyone who's taking the time to learn this craft of mental health counseling, but there is a very, very pronounced difference between counselors who deal with the general public and ones who have the experience and the profession of law enforcement or first responders and coming into this mental health counseling. So have you ever had a time that you've dealt with a first responder that is suffering from substance abuse, whether it be alcohol, unfortunately controlled substances, and, how were you able to recognize that where maybe other clinicians miss? Where's that connection between law enforcement or being a first responder and needing to use a substance that those clinicians on the outside they miss?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, culturally competent, yes. I don't feel like, every day I'm my biggest critic. So every day I don't feel like I'm a great counselor. As soon as I end a session, I'll be like, I should have said that, or I shouldn't have said. Usually it's I shouldn't have said.
The Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah, I talk a lot and I tell a lot of stories. So usually I'm like, oh man, I blew that. And they never say that, but that's me. I challenge myself with two questions all the time. Who told you that? Usually me, nobody else. What's the evidence of that? I say that to myself all the time. But I will say this, the advantage that I might have is I did that job for a long time and I took it just as seriously. And I think I did a pretty good job. Here, I'm learning. There, I think I did a really good job. So the when it comes to alcohol and everything else, a lot of times they don't know how to just turn it off. And alcohol and I guess some drugs, believe me, if there was a way I thought I would have got away with it back in the Viking days, I would have been using drugs too. I just didn't. I just didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So, and you get in trouble with drinking, but everybody on the department is doing it. All your friends are doing it. It's a drinking culture.
It doesn't help when the department wants to have a morale day, right? At TGI Fridays or Outback.
Yeah, everything is always associated with alcohol. I always use an example of Baltimore team. Okay, Ravens. Ah, man, the Ravens won today. Yes, let's go drinking. Oh man, the Ravens lost. Let's go drinking. So and so got promoted. Let's go drinking. Someone got fired. Let's go drinking. Everything is let's go drinking. And I was a willing participant. Never gotten I never got in criminal trouble for it, but I got a lot of trouble for it. Sometimes I'd be with the wrong person, or sometimes I'd be, I got stopped for DWI. Thank God the guy didn't lock me up. He kind of let me go before he let me get a ride, so that was and especially like it was the worst probably when Tommy was sick, but that was my way to just turn everything down. It just took the volume and turned it down a little bit. And that's all I was wanting. And so when these guys come in, a lot of times they minimize it, and you have to listen because I've been there. So when a guy's telling me, well, yeah, I drank this much and everything else. Okay, well, if you're drinking a quart a day, fifth a day, well, everybody drinks in the department, everything else. Yeah, they're probably not drinking a fifth a day, you know. And so I know a lot of police officers and a lot of firefighters that are in recovery. I think there's even some AA meetings for just first responders, but especially online. But but then they have an additional stigma. How do I go to an AA meeting in my neighborhood when they're going to know I'm the police?
Yeah.
What if they tell lawyers? Is that going to mean when I'm on the stand at a DWI trial, Your Honor, I'd like to ask a few questions about his own drinking habits? Or am I going to go there and see somebody I locked up?
Oh, 100% will come up. 100%.
Yeah. And I'm not against drinking. If I was home, I'd probably have a beer and a cigar right now. It's been a long day. I'm not anti-drinking, but so they have the stigma also is that goes back to I can't handle it. Okay, he can't handle his drinking. Now he may think he's handling it, but we all know somebody who is like, if we're going out, I hope they're not drinking because if so and so shows up, he's going to be a jerk. He's going to do this or something else. Hopefully, sometimes I was probably the jerk, but usually we know, everybody else knows there's a drinking problem. Matter of fact, I call it the silent client. The silent client is the wife who has the guy coming in here to see me. And then you start picking it apart. They're here for anger, or they're here for, I keep getting in fights with my wife, or I'm just miserable. I'm depressed. Well, alcohol's a depressant. And you start digging into how much you're drinking. And you're like, yeah, well, you're drinking a depressant, dude.
Yeah.
You're depressed and you're drinking a depressant, So alcohol is still king in the firefighter and the police world, I'm sure. And when I say first responders, I generally mean fire service, like EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, police, so special agents, detectives, sheriff's deputies, and then dispatchers. Nobody really talks that much about them. And corrections. I'm always trying to get more connections. There's something popped on my screen. Let me clear it real quick. And so, yeah. So it is a big problem. It's still a big problem.
Do you ever have people who, like officers or first responders, maybe even veterans, who come to you and, eventually you're working with them and they start opening up to you when they've seen other counselors and they just never really got the service that they needed because there was a disconnect in the culture? Therapy, not therapy, but therapists not understanding the police culture and giving them just advice that is just not best suited for them. Well intended, but not quite landing.
Yes, that happens frequently, and you don't have to be like my therapists. One is a crisis response team worker, but the other two were not, and they have a good understanding of it, and I'm able to work with them. I really love working with like newer counselors, and I like them to get built up and go do their own thing. No, there's no competition. You want to go start a practice right on the corner, take your clients with you, and I'll show you what I did. There's zero competition. So I really like that. I'm hoping that's why I hope to be teaching more in the future. So, and they do an excellent job. But there's a couple of things I have to tell. There's a few things that just come to mind. Number one, not everything is traumatic. Okay, I just had this, I did this call and this and that, or the other day. Oh my God, you did what? Oh, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Well, are you just holding it in? I mean, are you blocking that? Are you stuffing that?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Yet I've seen that happen 60 times. That's like my 60th fatal accident. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I go home and it's just it's a fatal accident, that one. So not everything is trauma. Number two is not everything is not trauma, because the one thing they don't want to say is it was traumatic and I'm suffering with it until they get to know you. So they can go to again, we'll use the example of a fatal accident. That's the classic firefighter or police officer doesn't know why, goes behind his car and starts crying. So I've seen accidents worse than this. Why did this one bother me? Well, there's something to talk about. It could be just there's like a tank full of crap on her back and it slowly fills up. And then the last thing to pour in is the first thing to come out. And that was that accident. And you got all this other stuff to talk about too. So it doesn't necessarily traumatic for that officer. Number two, it might have been traumatic for that officer. He's hiding it. You have to kind of get to know your client. You have to understand. Those are the two big ones. And the dark humor. The black humor. I got a ridiculously horrible sense of humor.
Thank you.
Well, I know you both do. A horrible sense of humor. I've talked to you. You have a sense of humor. First of all, everything, excuse my language, everything's fucking funny to me to begin with.
Yes, he gets mad at me all the time.
I clown around. Anybody who knows me, everything is fucking a joke to me somehow.
Me too.
Get out here. This guy could be walking and he falls down. I'm like, oh, on the sidewalk, I'm horrible. It's horrible. So
see, so the thing is, George, and I'm gonna put some preface on this, is yes, we do have that dark humor, and I am probably one of the contributing worst ones, ma'am. You haven't seen it. Don't worry about it. But it's also called a time and a place. Time and a place.
Okay, but you're coping. You're dealing with it.
I think on this one, I'm gonna have to go with Dylan, because my whole career, I could talk to about being the class clown. I've just done ridiculous stuff because sometimes it's just shit is just so funny, and it's not funny to anybody else. It's just funny to me. And so I've gotten better. I've gotten better with it. The further you get away from it, then maybe you get a little better. But it doesn't shock me. Like if somebody says, a guy in here the other day was talking about a fatal accident, horrible. The guy's brains were out. He said,
"Noodles."
Yeah, what was really weird is seeing that guy's last thought. I'm like, and we both just started laughing. It was horrible.
Well, it's like what was his name? He was at the bridge. He was
Vinny Montez.
Vinny Montez.
I love him.
Vinny, if for some reason you hear this at some point, shout out to you. You are absolutely amazing, funny guy. keeping things interesting
hilarious.
for us cops. We saw a skit for him. It was responding to an incident, and he had made a similar joke about it.
One blue this way, one blue
Well,
that
hold
way.
on, you're
Am I
taking
ruining it?
you're ruining it. You're
Am I
ruining it.
ruining his joke?
His license said green eyes, and Vinny said, no, I think he has blue eyes. And he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, one blew that way, one blew the other way. It's over there. So, horrible thing. And by no means are we ever endorsing, self-harm by any means. But,
It's a coping mechanism. It's okay. It's a coping mechanism, but they don't get it. Or what I see them sometimes do is try to push it themselves. And if one thing we all are, we can read bullshit very quickly. And we're like,
100%.
this guy's trying, or this guy or this girl's trying to to project to me how edgy they are and how, they
tactical they are. They're so, yeah.
You're not getting. That's why when we go somewhere, as soon as we see another one or two of us, that's where we start talking, because nobody else gets it. So,
George, I'm going to tell you something. It's very embarrassing.
Stand by, everybody. Stand by.
okay,
I went through, I've been a crisis intervention officer since my first year as a cop. I don't know why they decided to throw me in. I was not very good at talking to people. I was super awkward. Super, super awkward.
Still.
Yeah, I still am. 100%. Lucky for me, I'm comfortable with you. Unlucky for you.
I've never seen you. I've never gotten awkward out of you. I never.
That's so nice of you to say. I don't believe you, but that's so nice. Thank you. So I went to hostage negotiation school / crisis intervention school, which essentially was kind of the same thing, except a little bit higher stakes. More risk of lives.
I was up for that.
Yep. The first day, so Kela, it was a 5-day course. Day 3, Kela comes. It's about the second or third. I think it's the third scenario. No, you came on the third.
Oh.
Third day, third scenario. I was doing really good. Super excited. Was crisis intervention the first 2 days. And then we got to hostage negotiation. I really had a great idea. You're supposed to be a coach for other people, and then you get to be the primary, right? Okay. My guy was on the edge. I had this brilliant idea. I was like, I'm going to tell him that his kids really, love birding with him, and they want to go birding with him again. Well, I took that thought. It was a really great idea. But I took that thought and told the man on the edge that he could fly. And that was my mistake. I went down, when you tell someone not to think of a pink elephant, the first thing they think of is a freaking pink elephant. And so in my head, I was like, we're not going to tell this guy he's going to fly. We want to tell this guy he's going to see his kids and take them birding. But birds fly. So I told this guy the simulation that he was, gonna be free. We're not going to take him into custody. He's going to be free. And it was, it ended up being okay. He came forward a little bit, but I don't think that was part of it. If that was real life, it would not have worked out that way. It was
I was thinking of the guy just flying. I was thinking of him just like jumping, just like
100%.
Thank you, officer. And he just leaps out there.
Yep, that's probably what would have happened in real life. And now I know to never say that again. And I will never use the bird reference ever again. And it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever done in a class full of people my entire career. And I've done a lot of embarrassing things. I stopped a robbery suspect and I did not park my truck. And then I had to chase it down the road. That was a fun thing I did like 2 months ago. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bethel. Yeah.
It's kind of
Hey, fun fact for every cop out there. Before you go out on the call, make sure the car's report.
Yeah, I was on a downhill slope. I didn't realize it. I had to chase it after it. He literally matched the suspect description to a T. But after that, and I chased my truck down the road, I realized, he was still sitting there, standing there. And I realized he was not my suspect after that. I chased my truck down the road, put it in park, and walked back to him, and he was still hanging out. So,
Like, is he like, welcome back, officer?
yeah, yeah. Don't forget that I have asthma, very bad asthma. So I was when I got back to him. So that was pretty much the end of that.
I don't have asthma. I'm just fat. So that's why I breathe. If you see me and I'm moving fast, I start breathing like that. That's just called obesity, and it might be a heart attack.
So George, another part of this whole podcast that we have going on. Yes, it's primarily for the first responder community and the veterans out there, but it's really also, and I really hope that more members of the public hear this. The ones that don't have the dark humor, they don't have the traumas that we have, they get to see us. And it's kind of that cliche term, humanize the badge, right? It's become unfortunately so cliche, but it's real. And showing the human element to this is important. So just to kind of rewind a little bit, you mentioned, you know, turning things down, the noise, turning the noise down. Can you talk a little bit about what that really means for us, sitting here, and any other cop out there or firefighter out there listen to this call? What does it mean to turn it down?
Well, turn it down is like, it's almost like noise. I'm not hearing, didn't hear voices like, somebody unfortunately struggles with schizophrenia or something, but it's just the nonstop, you're hyper vigilant. So you're doing things, not just us, firefighters and everything too. You're making decisions. Literally, somebody could die based on your decision, or somebody could live who was going to die based on your decision. That alone is huge. And then you have all the things to juggle in your mind, the court cases and where I'm going to go here and this and that, and then throw the drama in and everything. And it's just, for me, it was just constant. I couldn't rest. I'm a lifelong insomniac, so it took me years after I retired to actually sleep better. I mean, my wife would disagree. I get up in the morning and the blankets are just in a ball. One time I was at a hotel and I sent her the picture of the blankets in a ball, and she sent me hers. It was like folded over. You wouldn't know. You would never know anybody was even in that bed. So so things like alcohol kind of turns it down. Scrolling social media. These guys, we never talk about that, but just nonstop social media. I'll tell you something that's huge, believe it or not, is pornography. Pornography is huge. I'm not talking about, maybe somebody watches pornography. I mean, I'm talking with people for hours. It just slows everything. Everything's kind of focused on something else. Alcohol numbs it, cannabis, marijuana, I'm not against that either, but that's something else that just turns it down, turns everything down. The problem, or what could be a problem, not always, the solution to the problem is now the problem. So now I've always got to have it turned down. I'm always trying to turn it down. I don't know any other way, like prayer, meditation, exercise, just talking it out, just having people you can talk it out with, like peer groups or therapists or religious pastors or something, not having anybody to talk it out with can turn it down. But alcohol's fast. Scrolling's fast. We don't have to admit I'm weak to anybody. Matter of fact, with alcohol, it's almost, we're considered weak if we don't do it, And again,
you're kind of suspicious if you don't.
Yeah. I remember when I was with some Baltimore City officers. We were working undercover, and for whatever reason, I was new to the unit. They thought I was with internal affairs. I don't know why. Maybe the last guy before me caused problems or something. They would do stuff like, I'd come in, there'd be a plant on my desk. I'm like, what's this for? Oh, it's a plant.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
because you were
plant.
that plant. Yep.
Yeah. So one time they trusted me enough to go to a bar in Baltimore. So we go to a bar. We're all sitting around, and they're staring at me. I said, "Are you guys really waiting for me to order a beer before you order a beer?" And they said, "Yeah. As a matter of fact, we are." They didn't try to hide it. I was like, "Okay." Waitress came over. I'll have a beer. Then they all order one. So now we all have a mug of beer in front of us. And it's like a standoff. Well, like you almost hear like, we're all looking around. And I said, are you guys so bad and so suspicious that you're not going to have a sip of your beer? And before I even finished, one guy was like, yes, until you do. And I said, fine. I grabbed my beer and I went like this. And so they're all thirsty. And they're all, glug, glug, glug. And I put my beer down without taking a sip. And I was like, I'm not even thirsty. Just like that.
Gotcha.
But so anyways, alcohol is our king. So yeah, there's lots of ways we turn it down that aren't necessarily healthy. We still do, like food, food was the original drug, so
I'm
that's
unfortunately finding that out recently. I'm starting to find that out. Yeah.
I'm 100% guilty of that.
Yeah, come to my world. My world.
Hey, shout out to Chipotle. Go to be a sponsor for us, please. That'd be great.
It's right across the street from my new office.
I think I lived on Chipotle and Togo's. I don't think Togo's is a company anymore, but I definitely lived off Chipotle and Togo's in college. 100%.
Chipotle, I love that. I love it. I get the bowl and I like the chips with the sauce.
Yes.
Well, it's the Chipotle, the Chick-fil-A, because anything that's 50% off.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a great thing, right? So
mine's fried chicken. Fried chicken is my weakness, man. Fried chicken, Popeyes, Royal Farms, anywhere. It's my weakness.
Oh my God. I think the guys in DC took me to like a hip hop chicken one time and I was so sick. Oh God, I think I was sick for days. There was so much oil. I could not take it.
Yeah,
I couldn't hang.
You have to get a tolerance for it.
Oh, it was amazing. It tasted great, but I could not hang my stomach. But I was out the rest of the shift. We're married. It's fine.
Yeah, no, we actually have a hip hop chicken right across the street. I had it one time. I got the cod because from Hawaii, I gotta have some fish every once in a while. That thing might as well have been completely encased in salt. And salt, if you don't season your food, I don't know what you're doing. But that was on a whole nother level. That sweet tea that I had with it, it didn't matter. It just tastes like basic tea. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, right.
But so
we digress.
Yeah, we digress. Sorry, we're kind of getting a little off topic.
Going down rabbit holes.
What was that?
King of
Yeah.
I'm the king of digression.
Yeah. So, with that whole thing of, turning it down, finding the appropriate coping mechanisms and things like that, I think we all have come down to a point where a lot of the noise is not necessarily always what happens on the street. Right?
Sure.
And unfortunately, we all came in a time where the thin blue line, the controversial thin blue line, the fraternity, the brotherhood, the camaraderie that comes along with it, unfortunately, since a lot has changed and, we've spoken to a lot of other officers, things like that, and even firefighters, that have to respond to these calls. 2020 was a huge change when it comes to this one big topic of leadership and how leadership has changed and I don't even want to say adapted, unfortunately. They kind of just rolled with the punches of the media.
Yeah.
Right. And the optics of things and how now, and we mentioned, Dylan had mentioned me taking that FBI leadership course. Amazing, absolutely phenomenal. If there's any law enforcement out there, take that course. It definitely resets the standard that we should have been to be leaders. So anybody who aspires to be a future leader, go and take that leader course. It's not that expensive, and they also have scholarship options for people who maybe your department doesn't want to send you to training. And I talk a little bit about that on our Patreon. So, but the whole point of this is to roll back and say, you know, in your experience talking with first responders, how does the leadership concept, that the lack of leadership, affect, um, excuse me, the toxic leadership negatively affects first responders, and how does that trickle into their families, um, in your experience?
Well, I mean, the first of all, police were expert gripers, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're perfect. What we do, we sit around and we gripe. You know, we complain and gripe, and the administration is a popular griping source. You know, for us to gripe. But certainly, it does seem to me that and I was blessed. I had some really good supervisors. I didn't have many that were I struggled with. You know, most of mine were really good, and uh, but the with the politics and everything else, with those changes, I think they are. Well, they have to answer to the politician above them, and the politician above them is really going with keeping the peace, defunding the police, everything else. Now, of course, now they say, well, we never really said that. No, they used to say that, defund the police. The sign said, well, we didn't mean that. Well, no, that means exactly what it said, defund the police. So you get in trouble. Still, it's a little better, and it kind of depends on the jurisdiction, too. Some jurisdictions, across the board, every officer from that jurisdiction does not trust their leadership. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And some of the things they tell me, I'm thinking to myself, you know, I don't want to put anything in their mind. I'm just listening to what they say, but I'm thinking I wouldn't trust them either with what I'm hearing. And so you hear stuff like they throw them out to the wolves. They don't care. I don't know how many guys if there's peer support or unions out there like the FOP or the state troopers, you know, we have the Maryland Troopers Association, and there's the FOP, then there's all different organizations and peer support groups and everything else. How come these guys get out? Like, sometimes they're in trouble, sometimes it's just a workman's comp, like an injury type of stuff. Nobody calls them. Maybe they're one or two friends. You know, we all have one or two friends on the job that no matter what, they're going to be talking to us. That's different. Nobody from for example, the FOP calls and says, hey, you know, we know you're in trouble. You know, we are guilty till proven innocent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
100%.
innocent proven guilty around, but they treat it the other way around. And so why not have somebody just give these guys a call? How you doing? You know, what's going on? You know, anything we can do for you, or maybe just be honest. Yeah, dude, there's really nothing we can do for you. I just want to check on you, make sure you're okay. Based on your suspension or something else, there's not much we can really do for you at this stage until it all clears, but just want to make sure you're okay. But the leadership, I had a chief of a large department call me one time because he knew that I had seen one of his officers in the past after a traumatic incident. And so I saw that guy, and it was a while later, and the guy had unfortunately for him, another bad call. He called the chief, not an assistant chief, not associate chief. The chief called me himself and said, hey, I'm Chief so-and-so. You don't have to tell me anything about it, but I do know Officer so-and-so has seen you in the past because he's told me. And he had a bad call. It'd be too much to ask for you to just call and just check in with him. You know, which is what I did. But you know, how many other chiefs have called me with something like that? None. You know, how many? Now I do get some departments, you know, here in Maryland, the peer support team, they'll reach out to me. Some firefighter peer support teams or some counties. You know, I don't want to say which ones are good, because then by proxy, the ones I don't say, people are bad. But there are some large counties here in Maryland where their peer support team has reached out to me. They've sent me officers or firefighters or called me for advice, or their peer support members have come to meet me to vet me, to just say, hey, can we sit down and have a conversation with you before we tell our officers to see you? we want to meet you. I welcome that. You know, if I'm not the right fit, I'll find the right fit, you know, so for you. But, you know, you don't see that much anymore.
No.
So the toxic ship, the philosophy, the perception is not philosophy. Perception is they're going to throw me to the wolves. They're not going to back me. They're not. I don't know what's going on with the agency. And I know of guys that get in some kind of trouble where they're denying it the whole time, denying it up and down. I did not do it. It'll take close to a year before they're cleared. Even the court could have been cleared 6 months ago. What takes so long that this guy's sitting there wondering if he's going to have his job? You know, some departments, their leadership has this idea, you're suspended, so they order them, you can't talk to anybody else in the department. Well, that's great. Now I just ripped off any kind of support this guy might have, you know?
So, you know, George, that was a, you know, thank you for that. It's unfortunate. So with all that, with the job throwing us to the wolves and things like that, you know, there was a pretty pronounced question that I got in the leadership course that I kind of wanted to get your take on, which is, where do you think officers should have their allegiance to, whether the agency or their supervisor?
Mm.
You know, that was a pretty heated discussion that we had.
I'm not sure if I have an easy answer for that one. I mean, you can go back and forth because supervisor is going to be gone one day. The agency will probably always be there. You know, whose mission are you following? The supervisor or the, you know, or the overall mission of the agency? And just because you're following, either one of them could be wrong. The agency could have a horrible direction, or a supervisor could be steering you the wrong way. Or the supervisor can be great, could be dynamite, and you're, you know, so it's a tough one. I mean, I don't know if I have an answer to that. I have to put that one for a while.
No, yeah, that was kind of like a major consensus that we had, and you know, that's a key point that's so unfortunate. You know, that is such a point of contention between, who do we follow? Do we follow the supervisor that, like you said, may leave in a few years if they see that the mission of the agency doesn't foster, you know, positive?
Or what if you're on the street and the supervisor is doing something that's not quite right, and you know the agency's not going to back me for this?
It's a twofold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough question.
And you know, where it kind of came down to in the course was, you know, you kind of follow the agency at the end of the day, because you know, people do leave. You're dealing with people, but do the supervisors do what it's supposed to do? You know, those, what we see on every police unit, things like integrity, you know, commitment, community. But are they living up to those expectations that the agency sets forth to support their people, to where
Well,
it's all cohesive?
hopefully the supervisor is following the agency, and you're following the supervisor as he follows the agency. You know, to me, a supervisor is supposed to limit the heat coming from above him, filter that down, and get the concerns sent up. You know, that's to me, that's their biggest role.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of people's problems that come in here are is agency problems, and it's almost like, and again, I'm not going to say any agencies, but when I get a call from one, I almost can guess it's stuff going on with the agency, that particular agency, and other agencies. You know, I don't. They must be doing a pretty good job. I don't get many. The officers have the regular issues, because you got to remember, it's not all just trauma. They're going through a divorce.
100%.
Their grandma. You know, I've always struggled with anxiety. I have sexual trauma from my childhood. You know, we all bring bags to this party. You know, we all bring our luggage on this trip, and so there's baggage that everybody has, stuff like that, and you know, they bring this childhood stuff sometimes, and Well, how do you feel about your job? Oh, I love my job. Yeah, I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I get that all the time. I have guys come in. I have, it could be a firefighter, police officer, something else, military trauma. A lot of us were former military, some kind of military trauma. Well, how's your job? Great. Love my job. I don't have any complaints about that.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so I want to ask, why, in your opinion, do you think that cops will gladly trust other cops, but they won't trust therapists or therapists who have not had the law enforcement experience or background? I know that that's something we talk about a lot, but I think it's really important for other people to hear as well.
The
And that's
major
why
community. Yeah.
yeah, that's why peer support I think is really growing. I'm a fan of peer support. Some people are like, oh, they suck. No, I'm a big fan of it. When it's done right, I mean, it really help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, um, the one of the reasons they don't trust them is because they're afraid it's going to do something to jeopardize their job. Like, now with the police reform, everybody has to, here in Maryland, everybody has to once a year or whatever it is, go get a psych eval from a therapist. So these departments will contract with some therapist and they'll sit down and ask them a bunch of questions, and don't know much about the job or anything. And I hear it all day long. These officers come in. I say, well, how did that go? Oh, I just told them nothing. I'm not going to have that. They're going to pull me from my job. We used to call it the rubber gun squad. They're gonna put me on a rubber gun squad. They're gonna take my gun. They're gonna take my badge. There's rumors. Oh, if I'm diagnosed with PTSD, I can't have a handgun permit. There's so they don't. Or I'll give you another example. Guy can come in, and George, sometimes it sucks so bad. If I didn't get up in the morning, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. Do I pick up the phone and say I have a suicidal officer on my hands? I don't.
No.
That's just a colorful way of saying my life sucks. I explored a little bit. I'm like, no, they're always like, I'm not going to kill myself or anything. But sometimes, man, when life's bad, most people want to kill themselves. They don't really want to kill themselves. They just want whatever's going on to stop.
Yep.
So these guys are like, I just, man, if I got some disease, I wouldn't even get fixed and everything else. Yeah, I'm worried, about the guy's depression levels and stuff. But where somebody who doesn't understand police culture, first responder culture, they may be, pick up the phone and be calling the department. We pull the guy in for a while. Okay. I pull the guy in. Well, he's still getting paid. He's not getting overtime. He's not getting his moonlighting gig. He's, he might lose his assignment that happens some agencies all the time. It's ridiculous. These guys will get suspended for some charge that they beat. They didn't do it. They said all along they didn't do it. They come back to work and they were a detective and now they're in patrol.
Yeah.
Well, why? Well, we had to fill your position. I didn't do anything wrong, and they lose it.
And that's that other identity drop. And unfortunately,
it's a whole other identity within the identity.
Yeah.
It's like
you were just in some kind of special assignment, and now for something that you didn't even do because you went to go get help, you are now looked at in the department. Because if the department does it right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, George, the department could do it right and not say anything to any of the people, but all they see is detective is now back on the streets.
And they don't say anything.
They don't say nothing.
They just oh yeah, he must have fucked up. That's the first thing everybody said.
Yep.
Did he want to do? I don't think so. Man. They think two things. Either he fucked up or he pissed off somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's a lot of issues with that people just don't get, and that's another thing I've talked about with other therapists because of that colorful language, but even then they don't trust me 100%. They'll be like, yeah, guy pissed me off. Sometimes I wish I could just go in there and blow the place up. I'm not going to blow the place up, George. They'll do that to me. Or sometimes if I didn't wake up in the morning, I'm not going to kill myself, George, like to make sure I'm not calling somebody.
And that's a huge thing right there. You have to reiterate, even though it's in our own quote unquote culture, right, of the dark humor, we have to do that within ourselves. So if we have to worry about this with the outside world, Now, when we have our own dark humor, we have to be so careful about what we say. Like I just said it, what was it? Maybe last week, because of unfortunate lack of leadership and support. Like that course that I took, that was out of pocket. Unfortunately, my chief doesn't believe that if you're not a direct supervisor, you don't need to be going to a leadership course.
By the time this comes out, he won't
Just
be working
figure
for
it
that
out when you
department.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm not worried about working for the department or not, as I'm not named in the department. But you know, it's so unfortunate that we have to tiptoe around our own people, the people that are supposed to catch our backs. You know, and it's so frustrating. And I said it that, you know, unfortunately, this place makes people believe that feel like they want to eat their own gun. You know, and I'd say I'm not going to go outside and get in my car and go drive somewhere and eat my gun. And I shouldn't have to say that. If I was somewhere else, they'd probably laugh it off, like, "Yeah, bro, I feel the same." But
Well, and I guess they probably say that because we really do kill ourselves.
yeah, yeah,
I do say that. Another thing with my population, you know, they really do kill. You know, they really do. You know, I've had friends kill themselves. You know, one just in February. You know,
just past February,
yeah,
or this February,
so,
excuse me,
no, the last one,
2024. Okay,
no, 2025, yeah, 2025, yeah, but yeah, so the so they really do, and so yeah, but you shouldn't have to, but also we have each other's back, but we're also some of the most judgmental about each other as well. The gossip in any department is ridiculous.
It's like you're back in high school. Freaking
And you know
little
what?
kids.
I'm in it. I was in it back in the day. I would be just there too, but like, oh, what? You know?
It's funny because at the department I'm at, it's actually, I'm not talking anything negative. He was looking at me like, be careful. But no, the department I'm at, for a while I was the only female except for the dispatchers and I don't know, like the admin assistants. But like I have to tell you, well, dispatch, I stay out of dispatch constantly. That is the center hub of drama. I stay away from it. I love the dispatchers as individuals. I don't go up there because it is the hub. It's the hub of drama. However, with that said, comma, pause. With that said, for the first 2 years I was there, I was the only female except for the dispatchers and them. And I got to tell you, the drama was not between the girls. It was the guys. The guys were worse than the girls. It was crazy. That was the first department that I've ever seen it like that. But man, it was surprising.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma.
Gossip and trauma bonding, two very different things. Trauma bonding is calling Noodles the cat that exploded on the highway that got ran over.
Wow, where do we get that? Oh, yeah, that's a pretty detailed.
Yeah.
Poor Noodles.
Sorry, I just can't eat spaghetti anymore.
Yeah. But you know, it's really unfortunate, and I hope one day, you know, we'll be able to get back to that. I don't think we will personally. I just hope and I pray. There's another thing, and trying to remember what year did you start in law enforcement again?
I was a cadet in 84, joined the academy in 85, and we live in our academy, so I was there for 6 months.
So you're considered a Gen X, a Gen X,
old.
right?
A Gen old, whatever.
No,
I think I'm a boomer. I think I'm a baby boomer.
Are you a baby boomer?
I think I'm at the
no,
tail end.
boomers are 60s, right? Like 60s and 70s.
61.
Oh,
okay, then I guess you are.
So this is
Call me boomer all the time. They're like, "Hey, boomer."
Sorry, I should laugh.
No, but this is another very, very big topic of, you know, since we're on this topic of leadership, I think it's very, very important to know and for the public to understand that, you know, in this profession, we are currently in 4 generations within our
Yeah.
profession: the boomers, the Xers, the millennials, and the Zs. And, the difference in leadership is so profound. It's not even
Yeah.
funny. The mindset and the mentality of the old days, right? Hey, suck it up, buttercup.
That's the boom. That's my generation. Or go do this. Yes.
Hi, sir. Moving, right? You didn't even
Right.
ask how fast. You just did it.
It's not. It's not when you get told to jump. It's not. It's not how high. It's when can I come down.
Yeah.
That's the generation.
Yep. Yep. And, with that, I think it's really important for also the public to know that, there are great cops out there. It's just the generational breaks at times. The leadership, they may not understand that, like our generation, asking why is not a bad thing. If we get a directive or we get an order, it's not necessarily wrong to ask why. Maybe we just need to know and build that rapport and build that relationship so we understand that when you tell us to do something, hey, you're going to tell us why. There is a rhyme and a reason. It's not just because it's your mission. It actually is the agency mission, but we just need to approach it a different way.
Well, and the new guys and girls, they're much more aware of their mental health. So the older groups are like, they're a bunch of wussies. They all know, always everything's a trigger for them and everything else. Well, no, I'm coming here. It's just they're more aware of their mental health. I don't think they don't thin blue line or anything. They're also more prone to, I work my shift and go home with my family.
100%.
Choir practices, and they may do a shift thing every now and then. So the older guys are like, it's not like it used to be. Nobody hangs around. This generation doesn't do that as much.
Yep.
I think part of it is also, at least from, I think at least from the millennial generation, I think the Zs are a little bit different in this, but I think the millennials, we have learned so many times, like we've been burned over and over again, and not just burned by our leadership, but sometimes burned by ourselves, by putting our foots in our mouths, and not know it, like doing something without question because that's what you're trained to do. But then you're asked by the public, you have the camera in your face and you say something dumb. And that is what ends up on the news, not the situation, not the whole aspect, but you put your foot in your mouth because you don't know why you're doing this. I was told to, and you don't have an answer. So you come up with something and you're like, well, that's not really why, but well, what are you going to say? Because you didn't tell me why, so you get this back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, when it comes to leadership, what is one thing that you believe that all leaders, either current or future, should know? Coming from someone with your accolades, obviously you've done amazing work. I mean, I don't know too many cops.
Cool, fake
Yeah.
hitman. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
fake hitman. That's insane.
I wish I had known that last year when I first met you. I would have had so many different questions. Instead of balling in your lap of you and your wife, I would have probably been asking about that. I'm very sorry.
Well, I would have a story for everyone. So
Yes. So, with all of your experience and now also transitioning out of law enforcement, going into that mental health, speaking to the old, the new, and the future, of this profession, what do you think that leaders need to know? Because obviously we have a crisis right now in maintaining cops, even bringing them on board.
Well,
What do you think they should know?
One thing is they have to start seeing these guys as human, these guys and girls as human. So things like just transfer them. That sometimes it surprises me. A lot of people are like, oh, the agency's evil. They did this to this guy, that guy. Some of them are it's worse than that. They simply don't care. You're just a number. we're going to move these 3 numbers over there. Okay, well, this guy's divorced and he has visitation, and he was in this unit where him and his ex, and it's rocky with his ex, but they haven't worked out on this schedule. Well, sorry, you signed up to be a state trooper. You can go anywhere in the state, or you can sign up to be this county. You can go anywhere in the county. And they're just, there's no human element. Nobody ever sits down and says, wait a minute, before we move so-and-so, do you want him to leave and go to another department or just resign or something else? Or do you want to try to retain him and work it out? I'll give you an example. There was this department, two different stations. It was a large department. They had 2 different stations. And so this guy here used to work there. And when he worked there, dynamite. He was a young guy. He was a ball of fire, liked his job, had a great time working there. He gets transferred to this spot. For whatever reason, whether it's his perception or it's true, because it can happen. You can have supervisors that screw with you. So I'm not just, but it's nonstop. He's always in trouble. He's always arguing. Feels like they're gunning for him. They feel like he's not doing anything. So they need to, what do you do? Okay, we've been hammering him. It's not working. What do we do? Hammer him more. That's the thing. So he wants to go back to here. Well, over here, there's a guy that really wants to go here. They're both number 1 to go to each other's place. He asks, no.
Yep.
Now, what? If I was in charge of the police, if I was the chief of the police department, I would say, okay, wait a minute. He would be a happy employee working here where he did a good job. This guy would be happy over here. And here hates this guy, so wouldn't care if he goes. That's a swipe of a pen, if you're chief. No. And so some of these situations are so easy. These people, you get it all the time with messy divorces. You get a lot. Okay, now there's protective order. I'm making allegations, which sometimes they're true. And if they are, the guy should be punished for it. I'm not a fan of any kind of domestic violence. Trust me, that is not something that I'm a fan of for my own life. So, but that doesn't mean they always do it either. And it's a very good way to get this guy in the mediation, to make deals and everything else, to say he did X, Y, and Z. And then when it comes time to go to court, it's dropped and it's done. Well, this guy's been on suspension for months because of that. They need to. So I think the leaders, it's a long roundabout way of saying the leaders, I know you can't always do it, and it is a paramilitary organization and there is a mission, but there ought to be some at least thought about how can we do. I'm not saying kiss the guy's ass, do whatever he wants to do. No, I'm not saying that at all. But sometimes you can find a way to help the guy out. And if he's happy, if a happy employee, people don't quit jobs, they quit management.
100%.
And if he's a happy employee, then maybe you'd retain some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you definitely hit it right there on the nose and right on the top of the head of the nail on that. It's unfortunate when bad leaders become such bad leaders that people are willing to take a pay cut to go to an agency to do the same job with the same risk, sometimes even more. I mean, I know there's a certain agency, department down here in the DMV that's offering a $60,000 recruitment incentive, but they can't get anyone. And the pay is high, but the rumor on the street, and the law enforcement community is small. The law enforcement community within the DMV is even smaller. So, word gets around, and if people know there's bad leadership, they will avoid it like the plague, because it's the money isn't worth it. At the cost of your own mental sanity and your mental health, a paycheck isn't going to get it all. It's not going to get it right. And it's unfortunate that also not a lot of departments have good quality EAP programs.
Yeah, a lot of them don't.
Yeah, and so with their EAPs, I wanna ask you, do you believe that officers who may not, and please correct me if I'm wrong, George, when we were at the bridge, they had mentioned that not a lot of EAPs in police departments, that the counselors are actually certified to handle first responders and critical
No,
incidences.
here in Maryland, they're contracted out, probably to the lowest bidder. I mean, I hear it all the time. It's like, if I could think of most departments, for example, um, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was a police officer for 25 years and have a mental health practice. No departments call me, but they'll call an EAP or something else, or they'll hire this person to do this or something else. And I, you know, I'm, I'm waiting. If a department called me, I wouldn't close down my practice, but I would certainly contract with that department and get them what they needed. So, but it doesn't. Um, but I'll get a call. Some departments I never get calls from because they have an EAP, and I know the officers now. The officers will sometimes come in and see me and something, and they complain about them.
Yeah.
But that's who they have to see.
Yeah.
They go to EAP. A lot of times, even sometimes, and this is not true, but this is again a perception. Peer support recommended that I go see such and such. I'm not going to go see them because if they recommended them to me, that must mean that they have an in with them and they're going to hear what I talk about. And I literally get officers, especially, where the crisis team referred them to another counseling practice and they call me just because they don't trust the crisis team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with that said, I think it's really important to talk about how we met. There's so many first responders who feel alone, like they have nowhere to go, and that there's so many, last ditch efforts that they're trying to reach for help, but they really just don't know where to turn to. Or, me personally, I have never worked at a department except for maybe when I was a university cop that had an EAP program in and of itself. I have never been at a department that has had a mental health service in there. And it's crazy now because I've seen so many that do have them. And it's becoming, especially with the more woke departments, it's becoming more and more, but it's also less because, again, it's the lack of trust for those that have them. But, we met at the bridge, and I think it's really important to give them a shout out and let people know that this is a retreat that is free and they're doing amazing, just phenomenal work, and that's how you and I connected. And they also have Harbor of Grace in Maryland, one of the only 4 wellness centers, I think, that and rehab centers for first responders in the country. I think there's only like 4 that are really the major ones that are dedicated to first responders
We have
only.
2 in there. In Upper Marlboro, we have the IAFF Center of Excellence, all firefighters. And in Havre de Grace, we have Harbor of Grace, which is for any first responder, any stripe first responders. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not many of them. I think there's one down in Florida. Shatterproof, maybe something like that. I don't know. Yeah, Shatterproof.
Someone was telling me about a place in Utah I think it's called Deer Hollow. Someone recently told me about that. It's for first responders only as well. And there's something in Texas, but I've heard amazing things about Harbor of Grace. So
yeah, they do a bang up job. Yeah, I've sent people there. They've sent people to me. Close. I've considered my relationship with them to be a good, solid. I consider them friends.
Yeah.
Up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to touch back on what Dylan was saying is, the bridge, they're actually located in Columbus, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right on that, George?
I think it's Columbus. I know I went to the cigar lounge one night, and the cigar lounge was called Dublin, Ohio.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Dublin, Ohio.
Right outside a suburb of Columbus, maybe, or something,
So, just a little quick background, just for anybody that's going to be listening to this or watching this, is, they put on such an amazing program. And the crazy thing is, you just got to get there. You literally just have to physically get there, whether it's by driving your car or catching a flight. Your room, your board, the programs are
Food?
100% food. That's the important part.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Phenomenal.
food was
Oh,
phenomenal. That's for the
Great.
firefighters.
You know what? I get I've I've told so many clients about it, and I think I've had one that's went and done it. They just a weekend away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could take my wife got so much out of going to that and sitting in the groups of spouses. And she told me, she hears, oh, that sounds like George. Oh, that sounds like George.
Yeah.
That sounds like George. Later, she said, no offense, but some of the stuff that I just thought you were being an ass is really, this job must do something to you, because I'm listening to all these people say the same thing.
Yeah.
She's in a counseling program herself now at AMU where I went. The goal is one day to work with me, when she graduates, work together. But part of it was life. Is it called Life Bridge or just the Bridge?
It's called the Bridge Retreat.
First Responders Bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Life Bridge is a hospital here in Kilkenny. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bridge.
We got the coins.
Yeah, I got the coin right there.
There we
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
The other room in the in my other room. Yeah.
I want to give you a shout out and make sure that people understand that, you are a resource for them too. Like I said, from the very, very beginning of this conversation, is meeting you at the Bridge a little over a year ago now has dramatically changed my life. And, you've become a mentor. You came to my wedding. Like, meeting you has just put me on a different trajectory than I would have continued on. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want people to know that, if they need someone, they should be turning to you. You're licensed in Maryland. I don't know if you're licensed in any other states, but
Just Maryland, right? And I have 3 excellent people: Christy, Ariel, and Heather. All of them are great. All of them work very closely with me. It's hard sometimes to get an appointment with me because I'm so full to the gills all the time. But they have openings, and trust me, they wouldn't be here if I didn't trust them. And they are dynamite. I can get anybody hooked up with them, or they can call me about anything, really. Just Driftwood. It's like Driftwood on a beach, Driftwood Psychotherapy.
how do people find you? Do you have a website or Instagram or?
You can go to Driftwood Psychotherapy LLC.com. My email is driftwoodpsychotherapy@gmail.com. If you want the website, you have to add the LLC.com.
Yeah, we'll definitely go ahead and attach this to the captions over here on this episode as well. It's very important, and I really do believe that, again, everything is for first responders and the community, but we would not be where we are if it was not for our spouses, the ones that hold it down for us at home. So any spouse,
nobody talks about them as much. That's what I loved about the Bridge.
Yeah.
They focus on that, and man, they don't get I thought I always had these ideas, and I was going to have a group for first responder loved ones. I was going to do a first responder women's group too. You know what I mean? But I haven't done that either.
we're building that. So George, I mean, if you ever want to come down and then jump in, I mean, I'm sure you're going to be on tomorrow for the first peer support group. So,
I will be.
Yep. So
By the time this airs, it'll be like the 10th.
Yeah. But just to kind of pull it all back. So, in your opinion, your professional opinion, do you believe that when it comes to speaking about the actual traumas, we talked about the actual trauma and the not so actual trauma. So, do you think that when first responders are looking for a therapist, do you think that it ever comes up in their head that maybe they don't want to they don't want to open up too much because they fear that they're going to traumatize their own, counselor in this?
I hear the stories that happens, that uh, this I had to console the therapist. Now
Really?
I'll say I had a therapist, a great therapist. I still have her still periodically. First time I saw her, I was going through some stuff. I started crying. Now I never used to cry when I was on the job. Now I can cry. You probably make me cry in 5 minutes if you just work at it. But then watch Forrest Gump 1,000 times. Cry every time I watch Forrest Gump. I don't know why. So, so but I looked up and she was kind of teary eyed too. Wasn't like sobbing and snot running out of her nose and pulling at her hair. I stayed with her for that reason, but it can go a little too far too. And these, if the guy's talking about something and the counselor has this horrified expression on their face, like, oh my God, dear Lord. Okay, well, I haven't even I haven't got to the meat and potatoes yet. We're just on the appetizers. Trust me, if you can't handle the shrimp cocktail, you're not going to be able to eat this steak that I'm getting ready to throw down here. And so that's another one. So I have to kind of go with, you have to really go with what the client's going through. If they're shocked, well, then it's okay maybe for me to. If they laugh, it's okay for me to laugh. So there are fears of. I've had clients tell me they don't see the same counselor anymore because they felt like they traumatized the counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. How do people find, like, how do first responders or veterans, how do we find counselors who are specialized in trauma or who know our culture? Is there any type of
Yeah, there's a
centralized
lot of,
hub?
yeah, there's not, but if you look around, it's kind of cliquish in my world, in this niche. It is kind of there are cliques out there, and there are people. For example, you can call Harbor of Grace, the counselors up there, or you can call Ken Byer, Chuck Carter, Mike McDermott. Those three guys. They have so many first responders coming in there, and then there's so many contacts that they have out there in the field. They could call people like me, and I could say, okay, well, I want in person, but I live on the Eastern Shore. All right, well, I can help you find somebody on the Eastern Shore. I probably know somebody in this world because there's not a lot of us. Police wise, there's some firefighters. There's not many police that are That's something I wish I could build up more. But firefighter wise, I hear more in the firefighter world. I would love to hire a firefighter. But so you kind of just have to find somebody. The peer support teams, the bigger counties in Maryland. And I can only speak for Maryland. They kind of they vet. You can call. Hey, I need someone on the peer support team. Who do you guys refer officers to? And they'll know. Like the big counties. I've given talks like in, I know I have resources in like Calvert County. I have resources in Anne Arundel County. I have resources in Montgomery County. I have resources in, Baltimore County. They have a training coming up October. So I talked to one of their peer support guys. So, yeah, you might have to look for it. And they don't necessarily have to have been a cop. You just have to kind of understand it. For example, there's a lot of therapists who are married to a cop or a firefighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they get the culture a little more.
Yeah.
So, with the culture and understanding that, and transitioning that over into the counseling side of it all, for anybody who's listening, that they may be thinking about maybe calling you or calling anybody that specializes in first responders and helping them out through their mental health issues. What can they kind of expect? So, say for instance, we'll just use you as an example. If a first responder came into you and they just got through a really, really bad critical incident, either the night before or even that same day, and they contacted you, what is one of the first things that you would do to kind of bring them out of that rut, to kind of level them out, so that way you guys can start having that real deep conversation?
Well, first of all, it's just, you have to start with the basic listening skills. You have to make sure that they know that they're heard. So I start with an informed consent. I make sure that they know I'm not going to tell anybody what you tell me, unless, it involves abuse of a child or a judge orders it. I always tell them, knock on wood, no judge has ever ordered me to give up any information that happens in a therapy session.
I
And I
think that is
doubt they
so important. Can you
Yep.
say that again? Because I think
no
we need to
judge.
hear it.
I have officers that come in, they're going through a divorce. They have criminal charges. They have administrative charges. The only ones where you kind of have to reveal the records is a workman's comp hearing. Workman's comp generally needs all the records. Make sure the counselor knows that when you're going into it, because I prepare the records, and I don't want to, I always tell them I'm not going to lie, but that doesn't mean I need to put everything in here also. But a judge has never ordered me. Never one time if I had a judge order me. I've had defense attorneys send me subpoenas acting like I have to comply with them. Okay, well, a judge didn't sign this. I can throw that in the trash, And every time, the few times I've had a defense attorney try, that it's been quashed before I even went into trial. So no, I don't tell anybody. And I got to be very careful because I have members of the same department. I have members that I know they know each other. They're telling me stories and I hear a name. I'm like, oh man, I know that guy, So that's what I reassure them of that. Then I tell them that it's going to take, I always tell them the first time you're here, I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to talk more than I generally talk at all because I have to get information down for the intake. And instead of reading you a bunch of questions, I'd rather have a conversation. But to do that, you may say, well, my wife and I, oh, real quick, what's your wife's first name? Because I want to put that in my intake. So I stop them. And I tell them that therapy generally kind of goes like this. We're talking, and, you're saying some things and I'm listening. Boom, we hit this point. Oh, he talks some more. Boom, we hit it again. But one of us or both of us are going to say, here we are at this point again. And that may be important because, yes, they might, if they're coming in for a big trauma thing like I got in a shooting, okay, it's obvious what you're here for. If they come in here because their wife says they're being a jerk or they're drinking too much or something else, maybe. A lot of guys come in with the externals. This is what the problem I'm having. Fix this problem. Well, there's all this stuff down here that's fueling that problem, and we have to get to it. Now, if it's a big problem, yeah, if they come in addicted to heroin, we have to adjust that right away. They're drinking, if they're obviously, passing out every night drunk, okay, we have to kind of address that right away and get things stabilized. So that's the other thing I do. The first thing I do is try to stabilize, try to slow it down. What's
Turn it
going
down.
on?
Yep.
Turn it down. I tell them when they come in, I have 2 questions for you. Big questions. Why are you here? Okay, that's probably the biggest question. What brought you here? But equally important, what brought you here today? What brought you here now? Because typically, whatever we've been going through that shit for a long time.
Yeah.
If I'm here because of because of my drinking. Okay, why today? Because you've been drinking like that for a while.
Yeah.
So what is it? Well, I got a DWI, or oh, my wife's talking about leaving me, or something else. So generally, I want to calm them and and develop trust in them. Fortunately, that's a strength of mine. I'm not a great counselor, but I'm great at getting trust. I was undercover for I can get trust very quickly. So I bond very quickly. I get trust very quickly with body language and my words and everything. And before you know it, people are sharing things with me. And then we start, then there's all kinds, man, there's books and books and books on different kinds of intervention type of stuff. This research shows the therapeutic alliance is the relationship between the therapist and the client. And if the therapeutic alliance is strong, research has proven, no matter what intervention I do, no matter what theoretical approach I take, if we have a good relationship, the outcome will be better. So if I don't know what else to do, I focus on the relationship. If I get stuck all the time, I go back to the relationship and then back to the relationship. When they trust you, And then I'm not really giving much advice when it works. I'm walking with them, giving them, from my perspective, the Catholic perspective is we're made by something good. So we're probably made by something good to do good. So there's probably a good intention in what they're doing. They just really have a screwed up way to do it.
Yeah.
Killing pain, good thing.
Yeah.
Heroin's not. But my intention is I just want to stop this pain. I've just found a pretty bad way to do it. So
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
That's the approach. That's what we learn at Divine Mercy. So
I want to emphasize on that because I think it's so important. And as first responders, we are called 90% of the time, it's that person's worst day, and we get burnt out because we often are seeing the same people over and over again. And that day keeps repeating, and you're there, you're trying to help them, and you're wondering, how are you still dealing with this? How are you still in this situation? But, we get so hung up on that, but we forget that this is a person. What is their motive of doing this? Is it homelessness that they're trying to beat the cold? So they're doing this to numb that? Like, what are these things?
It's a huge thing in DC.
Yeah. So
Huge.
I think that, that is such a huge perspective change for me that you just brought out. So I really appreciate you saying that, because that's found.
You don't give too much advice because I don't have to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm really pushing, leave your husband, leave your wife. You got to leave him and this and that, and leave, and it blows up in their face. Well, I go home every night to my own problem.
Yeah.
But now they're like, George told me to do that. I trusted him. He told me to do it. So I try not to give too much advice. And they come up with ideas that I'm like, I would never do that. And sometimes they come up with advice. I'm like, man, I never thought of that. That's really good self-advice. And you just kind of walk with them. Just kind of go along with them, and if it's something dangerous or something, then yeah, that's when I'll step in. I'll be like, okay, heroin's not good. Well, I think I'm just going to do heroin for a while. That'll help me lose weight. I'm going to use crack cocaine to lose weight. No, there's other ways to lose weight. Do Ozempic or to go to the gym or something.
Yeah.
Crack cocaine's
Yes,
So-
we do not condone any type of controlled substance use.
Make sure you put the disclaimer in there.
So, I think you said something that, unfortunately, another thing, yet we're trained to do that we don't do ourselves, and that is allowing ourselves to build that rapport with the people that are coming to help us. We're trained to go out there and, we're taught, build the rapport. The biggest thing is, the easiest thing that you can do in your career, if you can talk someone into handcuffs, cool. Outstanding.
Yeah,
you're having a great career. How's about build that rapport when you're coming to get help?
Yeah.
And surrender to it. That's the uncuffing yourself from that mental trauma, the real trauma, the hardship. Uncuffing yourself. Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes I come up with some decent stuff. But
Well, you picked me up.
But no, and I'm being really, really genuine when I say this, is we are taught to do so many things that if we just found a way to flip the training that we give to everyone else and we turn that back inwards, I think so many of us would be able to have that vulnerability to heal, so that way we can be that A-team, the productive officers that we're expected to be. Because Dylan brings it up so many times, when it comes to this profession, we could go from a critical incident and minus an OIS, you're back on the street, and you're expected to go and deal with Cindy Lou Who with a basic noise complaint, and still expected to give that same level of empathy and compassion and professionalism, even though you have all that noise going on from 20 minutes ago when you cleared that last call. So I believe taking those skills that we learn and finding a way to implement it into our own personal lives by finding that help that we need, going and speaking to somebody that understands what we're going through. Um, it's a game changer. So what do you think about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. You need to develop relationships. I mean, there's some departments that have they're people they're helping people in their staff do a really great job of reaching out with the people. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Erica Carlson, because she's in my own department and she really does help a lot of my own department, like I'm still there, my former department. I do that all the time. So she does a really great job working for the troops. And other counties and everything else have the same thing, but they're the ones that spend time talking to the people. They develop these relationships, where they get to know, if I was to call them, they're like, oh yeah, we already know about Officer Jones. He's doing this, or, we'd like to, if you can. So I get excited when these different peer groups or the representatives for whoever makes those decisions, police or civilian, calls me and wants to talk to me. I'm like, yeah, I'm an open book. What do you I just want to help people. So, what do you need? If I can do it, I'll do it. I am pretty busy. Like I said, I've hired people hopefully to take a little of the heat off, but I see like 7 people a day. I started today at 7 a.m. So they're long days, but I'm doing what I love to do, but it's still, you're hearing all day long, rape, suicide,
Yeah.
this, that, all day long, so, but anyways, yeah, develop those relationships, build those relationships,
I'm glad you guys brought that up. I think it's really important, but I think that never really hit me. So me as an individual, I am a very silly person around my very close friends. I am the goofball. Like I'm just silly for no reason. Jim Carrey silly, asparagus out the mouth, Google, lemons on the eyes, like Ace Ventura silly. Like that's me. I'm a goober. But I try and portray something else, to other people because I want to be taken seriously. I want this, I want that, whatever. But I think it's really interesting that you guys bring that up because, in law enforcement, we neglect relationships so often, and not just our personal relationships, but relationships with the community. And, something I've learned from mental health counseling is, you don't remember everyone, but you remember how everyone made you feel. And it's not what they said, it's how they said it and how you felt when they said what they said. And you may not remember those words, but you remember how it made you feel, and that will stick with you forever. Like me, I'm really bad with faces, but something in Alaska, and I learned this lesson hard, is that in Alaska, well, 1, I stood out like a sore thumb, just like I did in DC, but 2, you are alone. I'm sure you know that as MSP, and any trooper will tell you that, but in Alaska, it is a different kind of alone.
Oh, I bet.
As troopers, I'm not a trooper, not planning to be. I have had a couple of experiences going to the villages and taking snow machines, which I almost flipped a couple of times, rolled it once, it was fine. We went to this village and got this suspect. I'm not going to say what for because it's still a hot case. So got this suspect, and this was my first experience in this where I didn't have a relationship with this guy, but I had to build one very quickly because it was me, my sergeant, another state trooper who knew the area and the villages, and then and the suspect. And next thing I knew, he was uncuffed for a very serious crime. I can't say what, but you can guess. He was on the back of my snow machine. That's how we transported him. He was holding on to my hip, my waist, my jacket, my gun. Everything is right there. Thank God I had other people with me, but you know, I've heard stories of troopers, you know, getting stuck and snowed in houses with their suspect for days because the weather is too bad to take a snow machine or fly back to the main area, you know, that has the jail. So you really learn to respect people and make people feel that you are a human and remind them of that human element as officers. And I think we forget to do that so often as first responders. We put up this wall and this divide. But at the end of the day, every time we're doing community service or you know, these relationship building things, you know, officers get that backlash from the community of actually my friend, he'll be fine. Jake was trying to teach some kids, you know, about handcuffs and different things. And I've let kids use my, you know, goggles for crime scenes, and, you know, you can see the snot on their shirts and all that stuff. Right. And a community member had posted on Facebook and said, oh, well, they're arresting this, you know, like a 5-year-old. And we're like, what the heck? So I spoke out about it. Thankfully, the way I spoke out about it was well received, but it's building those relationships that really matter, that bridge that gap, and ultimately can really save our lives more times than I can count. That, you know, I've had someone call me and say, hey, I heard you're looking for this person. You know, you didn't hear it from me, but they're in this place, you know, and I'm finding them. So I think it's really important that you guys said that. So thank you guys.
True. I mean, well, all of us have lost that, but I've lost that as a society, I think, where, you know, I get teased because I'll talk to everybody, like the person at the counter here, the person at the counter there. But where I worked, where I was at before, I knew everybody. I knew everybody. So as a detective, man, it was a skill I honed. I knew the lady with the coffee at Wawa. I knew this person. I knew I would get cases that way. Well, I've carried it through today, and I generally like people.
I want to be that so bad, but I'm so awkward. I can't do it. Like, he's so social. He talks to everybody. He could talk to a wall and have a full-on conversation and be totally fine. I can't. It's awkward.
Well, him and I are the same. I talk to walls all the time.
I know. You guys met. You guys met first, and that's how I met you.
Like there's an Exxon station right here. I go get my soda. I don't know their names, but pretty much now I talk to all of them. You know, when I go in there, I'll generally get to know everybody. Yeah. You know, the Popeyes right here. They're all Spanish, but they speak a little English. But I go there and practice my Spanish. They think it's funny. I try to say some things, but they know me when I come in. You know, so yeah. We lose it. Yeah, we lose it with well, the same thing when you were talking about leadership. Do you know your guys? Do you talk to your guys about what they're going through?
Yeah.
Or are you just up in your ivory palace somewhere and you know, untouchable?
Yeah, and you know, I just did this at my department, and I think it would be an amazing thing that I hope leaders that maybe jump on and listen to this. Are you familiar with the DISC model?
Oh, yeah, kind of. I know what I know. I kind of know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, it's a way to gauge where people are in how they present themselves and possibly their position as future leaders. And I actually had a few of our guys do it at work, and it was very spot on, right, to their personalities. But I think that's a really big thing that leaders should do when they check in with their people. Just like you said, know your people. And something as simple as that tool, using that DISC model to help narrow down your people, it's not a cookie cutter way to lead. And finding out, you know, one guy might want public recognition. One guy might just want to, hey, good job, bud, on that case. Or it really doesn't matter. It just comes down to how you take care of your people individually. And I think that would also help with keeping good cops, happy. But where where do you believe that we're kind of going to, or I'm sorry, going towards when it comes to this profession?
Hmm. I think I'm seeing some things come back more like, okay, the not arresting anybody plan isn't working. We also know that arresting everybody doesn't work, but
Yeah,
there has to be somewhere in the middle where, I'm not going to get into politics, but you have communities saying, I wish there were more police down here. What's the problem? What? It's not an occupation. We just need some more police down here. You know, people all these people protesting don't even live there. I don't see any of the people from the neighborhood protesting. I see them saying, yeah, it was kind of quiet around here for a couple of days. We appreciate it.
the
So
infamous Q word.
yeah, quiet. Yeah.
Uh,
So, but I think a lot of it is coming back. People are starting to say, you know, sometimes we do need to be tuned up or tightened up here and there and everything. People
100%.
change. Whenever I hear all the time, oh, police reform. Police are always reforming themselves.
Yeah.
There
They
should be
just don't see it.
community reform.
Yes.
That's where you need to say, wait a minute, why are we protecting the people that are destroying our cities or our towns,
Yep.
our neighborhoods? Why don't we together as a community say, hey, we don't want them here either unless they act right, But anyway, I think things are the guys that I talked to said they see things are kind of turning around.
Awesome.
With a little more common sense, just to protest, they're making again, I don't want to get into politics, but the immigration stuff, wherever you fall on it, who cares? But if you have in a detention center a child sexual molester, and we have an opportunity to move them out of the country, why do you want to help them get back to the community? Because for what, I don't know why, but they do. Why don't just call these people and say, hey, there's a deportation order for him. This is his second time in here for child molesting or a sexual assault or a homicide or something else. Can you please send him to another country? We don't really care where.
Yep.
But I think that goes back to the leadership topic of, I think leadership fails a lot in my perspective and from what I have just seen from the agencies that I've been through. Not to talk down about them, but just from my lived experience, they fail in explaining, in not only backing up the officers, but when we do wrong, it's not just, it's, some people easily put paper on you, but not really explain why it's wrong and how you could have done it better. They just tell you, oh, you're wrong with this. Here's your paper. Keep it moving. But then they don't tell you the better way to do that, or what to expect, or better yet, the failure is lack of explaining to the community, hey, this is why we're doing these things. This is the educational purpose behind it. I want you to know and understand this person was a 5-time sex offender. We've had 18 cases with no evidence that we couldn't get evidence on, but there are 18 different people who have reported, not someone who is, this person who is known to be the, 86 or, the mental health consumer of the community. But there are, 15 different people that we couldn't get physical evidence on. This one we finally got evidence on, and the DA bumped it down to a misdemeanor, whatever, and they're on the street, no time served, whatever the case. So I think, do a really bad job of that in law enforcement in general, and that leaders need to speak up more about that. But a lot of places it's frowned upon or prohibited. So then you go back to the constituents and the community and the policymakers.
Yeah, I definitely believe that, we've preached so much about transparency, but I think
Right.
the transparency is misguided, where the focus of the transparency, and for those listening, I'm putting up big fat air quotes here, is trying to hyper focus on the individual officer, not on the problem in itself.
Yes.
So when it comes to cases and things that unfortunately the public only sees because the media can only target what they see, right? It's kind of that old saying of the path of least resistance. If the path of least resistance is you were the cop working this case, you were the one responsible for everything, anything that went bad with it, even though they may not know the full story, you are the problem. You are the bad part in this and why this person was able to walk. Little do they know what happens in the back end, but they don't want to show that. And that's where the failed transparency is maybe the people need to have a call to action on the people who actually do have the decision to prosecute these cases or not. And it does not lie with the police officers. We are the we're the doers, not the decision makers.
Yeah.
And
No.
and that's that's where I believe we fail and where I believe leadership fails. And there is one state that, well, I'm sure there's a few others, but there's one state in particular that is very good at this, is Florida. Their leaders down there, not all of them, but a vast majority of them, they will speak up for their officers when the narrative is shifted in the wrong direction and shift the media back to where they should be putting their focus on. And they do for the most part. They'll shift it back to, okay, the officer didn't do anything wrong or the deputy didn't do anything wrong. We need to be looking here and start fact finding in this area. And then the truth inevitably comes out. But that's where there's that huge difference between police departments and sheriff's offices.
Yeah.
Huge difference between that. And I'm sure it's also different with the state trooper side. You know, the difference in mindset.
Their leader appointed, by the governor. So where a sheriff is elected by the so yeah.
You keep the people happy. Hey, you'll keep getting elected. And that transparency is extremely important. So, with all that, being said, is there anything that you believe that the community needs to know when it comes to your decades of experience in specialty units and now moving out?
Yeah, they just need to be aware that these guys are human. When it comes to like corrupt police, nobody can't stand corrupt police as much as other police can.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you.
Right. Nobody can. So, we arrest each other if we have to.
Yep.
So we're just humans. We're just doing our job. There are some things we can do and some things we can't do. Go in there and get that, but we're not allowed to do that. Oh, you never do anything. Please don't do anything. No, we have a law to follow. If we don't do it, we go to jail now. So the understand that they're human. They have limitations, and help them. There's no need to resist everything that they do. Every it's just that'd be the biggest thing, is just understand that they're human, and they didn't take this job for the money. You could argue some of it's for the excitement, but they all generally have an initial, I want to help people. I want to get the bullies. I want to get the bad guys out of here. When they're not, and just, well, now it's just simple respect. If an officer asks you to get out of the car, what documentation do you have? Well, what is it? You see him filming it. Where's your documentation? What is this? Do you have this? I want to see your ID. Just get out of the car and let him go on and do his job, because he'll clear you and go do something else. But you have to make it.
And because we are also in this educational field, and George Forsythe, right? Let's go ahead and clear this up, because I know that this is a very big thing. We see this on YouTube all the time, and you brought it up. Hey, I need you to step out the car. Well, why do I need to step out the car? There's a very, very profound It's already case law. For the civilians out there that don't know, it is Pennsylvania versus Mims. If you want to look at that, it's a Supreme Court ruling that allows an officer, a trooper, a deputy, for any reason, they don't need one, to ask you to step out the car, or anybody out of the car, even if you have passengers in the car. So please go ahead and just follow the directions. We are not here to make your lives difficult. We are here to make sure that everybody is safe. If there's any other education that you feel that people should know from your experience, please go in and share that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the biggest one. Just, there's such a, I think because of trauma and everything else, you have two sides. You have the side that's usually more from an urban development. They really don't trust the police. And there's police that really don't trust them. So you both trauma, both hyper vigilant, both sides are looking for the other side to do something bad. And it's not always that case. It's not always the case. Officers are telling you keep your hands on concealment. Why? Well, I don't got to take my hands out of the pocket. Okay, well, because sometimes officers get shot. What are you saying? I'm going to shoot somebody? Well, no, nobody's saying that. But can you just take your freaking hands out of the pocket? Big deal. Just because you're told to,
So what do you think? What do you think civilians should know if they believe that their rights actually are being violated on a traffic stop?
Well, if your rights are being, there's, I don't really have an answer for that, really, because I don't want to give any kind of bad advice. So I don't have an answer for that. But if your rights are being violated, then there's avenues later on to make a report. Everything's on body cameras now.
100%.
You can ask for the tapes. Your lawyer can ask for the tapes and do everything. Do everything. It's these guys that are like, oh, it was an illegal search. Well, they found a gun in your car, right? And a couple ounces of heroin. Well, yeah, but it was a legal search. Okay, well, don't have guns and heroin in your car. If the police stop and want to search my car, they're not going to find guns and heroin.
Yeah.
With whatever reason they want to search my car, yeah, do I have to, and this and that, and the laws, this? I would probably just say, yes, officer, please don't rip everything up. But yeah.
Please don't dump everything out of my car because I know you can.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
But I figured they got to. Now I am from a law enforcement background, so I'm not from a background where I grew up not trusting the police. So.
But I think it also comes back to the whole thing of the path of least resistance, right? We talk about with the media, but I think that is an easy thing, and I'll definitely say it very outright. If you believe that your rights are being violated, again, like George said, there are avenues. And there are major repercussions that officers will face. It's not an if, it is a when, because we are held to that higher standard, and in an age where law enforcement is under the highest levels of scrutiny right now, trust me, if an officer wants to go ahead and take that risk, they will pay the piper. So just know that and have that confidence in that. So, George, you've given us so much knowledge, and we value your friendship, your brotherly love. We appreciate it so much. So
Your mentorship.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I just want to ask, one last question, unless Dylan has anything. So, what legacy do you feel that you want to leave behind? If everything was said and done, what do you want to leave behind for the first responders, the spouses, the community members out there? What is one big thing that you want to leave behind for everyone else?
I would just first of all, I'd like to see more people from our profession. Okay, we talked earlier about retirement, not having a job. Great job. Go to school. And when you retire, I can do this job as even an older man. Just get some kind of training to help people. I would really love to see first responders. You've seen it with peer support and everything else. I'd really like to see them embrace, well, let's take the next step. Let's be drug counselors. Let's be a mental health therapists. Let's be chaplains. Let's be whatever to just help our brothers and sisters out And number two, the legacy, I would hope to make it like easier to come in and just talk. Look, you don't have to solve all the problems in one day. Doesn't hurt to just sit down, somebody neutral, somebody who's not going to judge you. I have my judge meter is broken a long time ago. I think from all the years of advice and everything else, I really don't have a judgment meter for that kind of stuff. I have other judgment meters, but usually they're political judgment meters. But judgment meters are a guy coming in here or a woman coming in here. I don't care what she's done, he's done in their past, what they're doing. I just want to help. So I would like to leave that legacy of it's okay to not be okay and come in and talk to somebody. If not me or my staff, again, I'm trying to get them some people because they are dynamite, so I would like to develop like a legacy. My goal is grow here, open up another office in another region, where every area kind of has close enough if they want to come in person and talk to somebody, they can.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And George, from us, thank you for what you do, everything that you are doing and still continue to do. You still continue to serve, and I kind of started, and I'm hoping maybe I can make this a new model for us. Is we serve in one capacity, but the ones who continue to serve now, the ones who do continue to serve. Serving those who serve is an even higher calling, I believe. Keeping the ones that choose to still come into this profession and keeping them even keeled, keeping them motivated, and keeping that passion going and not feeling like they need to, unfortunately, end it all. That's a very, very
And it
admirable.
doesn't have to be these big things when you retire. Mother Teresa said, how did she say it? Not everybody can do big things, but everybody can do small things with big love.
Amazing.
So you can do, man, I'm going to have a coffee hour for the police. I'm going to do whatever. They'll come, they'll come. But something just small. We all can't do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And so just, these guys and girls, as they're moving through the end of retirement, man, step in and just help out. That I would love to see that. I'll help them.
I want to say thank you so much for partnering with us and, for being my mentor and helping us run our own peer support program. I had no idea until I went to the bridge that peer support even existed. I knew about counseling, I knew about therapy. I was like, what the hell is peer support? I was like, who are you? You're not a counselor. You talk like one, but you're also understanding me. What is this? And it's not.
Yeah, I've shared it with every client that I have.
I appreciate that.
I've had some say they'll come and some say they can't because they're working, but they'll come next week. And some of those, I know them. They really mean it.
Yeah. I think
you just never knew.
I think it's important to let people know that peer support is confidential. It's ours is online, but by all means, we're not just promoting our own peer support program. We get nothing from it other than to help each other. And that's why we started this entire program, this entire network of first responder peer support program nationwide, and we want everyone to be a part of it. And if it weren't for you being my mentor in all of this, if it weren't for the platforms that we're able to use, we wouldn't be able to do this. And everyone who participates, and we want everyone to know that it's confidential. You can use whatever name you want. You don't have to show your face, but we want you to have a safe space and connect with people and know that what you're going through has been gone through and you can make it through. And the same patterns, it's a pattern. It's not just you. It's repetitive, and I hate that, but it's true. And you'll meet someone, not just if you don't connect with me or Kela or you, there's someone on there you may be able to connect with that you're like, hey, I need their number because I want to talk to them. I get it. They get me. And that's super important. So thank you.
Yeah, it's the same thing here. A lot of the same issues. I'll hear it again. One will be phasing out, and a new one's phasing in.
Yeah.
General same issues.
Yeah.
So thank you both for having me. It was excellent. I had a great time connecting with you guys again and having some laughs and solving the world's problems, or at least the police department's problems.
100%. It's always going to come down, unfortunately, to the police department's problems. But before we go ahead and get off of this, very, very big shout out to Project Icon. They allow us to get this information out to you guys. Amazing people, Jared, Chad, all these guys that make it actually humanly possible, because I am not tech savvy by any means. You guys should Sorry.
I'm sorry. When I was going to give a shout out too when you're done. I just remembered somebody that I really want to.
No, yeah.
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
Please go for it.
There's another police counseling place in Maryland that works with first responders. First Line Counseling with Matt Frasca. He also does a lot of work with DC.
Okay.
Helped me immensely, and they work with first responders. I just want to make sure that I throw his name and his company out there too. I don't have their contact information. You can look them up online. It's Matt Frasca, and I think it's First Line Counseling, and they're in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that information from you. We'll also put that in the captions below for this video. But again, Brother George, it is always an honor and a privilege to have you, to see you. We need to catch up even more. We'll talk on the side about that. But yeah, go ahead. Anybody has any questions, give a like, comment, and we may actually even bring George back a second time if anybody has any questions. But again, George, thank you for everything you do and everything you continue to do.
Thanks, George.
Thank you both.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Good night.